Hey, it's Jason Creel. Let's talk about how to handle a disgruntled customer, basically. So I try to share stuff with you that happens in my own business so that I can pass it on, because I know typically most of the time if it's happening to me, it's happening to others out there. And so what I want to talk about today is last week I got a call from one of my weed control and fertilization customers. And if you're in the mowing business, one of the things you'll learn about in weed control and fertilization is you tend to get more complaints in that area because people's expectations are different. Where if you're cutting the grass, I mean, you can pretty much make it look good and you should get very few complaints. They're more likely to complain if you don't show up than because you can typically do a good job cutting the grass. When the weed control, sometimes depending on what the yard looks like, it can take a while to get it shaped up. And so people's expectations aren't met and they call and complain. So that's just part of the business. So you try to minimize that. But anyway, so I had a call last week from a customer I picked up this spring, and she called and she said, "Hey, this is so-and-so, I live on so-and-so street." And I said, "Oh yeah, I remember." And I could immediately, she switched over in her tone, and so she says, we've got a lot of crabgrass in our yard, and just to be honest with you, I think we have more than when you started treating our yard, and we were just wanting to know if you're going to be able to take care of that, because if not, we'd like to go ahead and cancel our service." And I thought, well, so I'm basically, taken back and have to gather my thoughts pretty quickly here, because immediately my radars go up and think I might be about to get fired here from this customer. So this is what I'm trying to teach you, is how to respond to customers who are dissatisfied for whatever reason, and to try to save the account. So I immediately think, okay, I might be about to get fired, but if I respond correctly, many times I can save these customers. And so I said, well, I'm sorry to hear that. I do know which house you're talking about. I was out there a few weeks ago and noticed that there were some clumps of grass in your yard. And I said, "Now, let me ask you one thing." I said, there's a couple of kind of grasses that people sometimes get confused, and you may or may not be getting confused, but there's crabgrass, and then there's also Dallas grass, which many times people get confused with crabgrass. And I can send you a picture of those, but anyway, through explaining that, I was able to help her understand that what she did not have crabgrass as she thought she did. She did have some clumps of Dallas grass, in which I typically try to explain this to the customer on the front end, but explain that I would be planning to take care of that this fall once her grass goes dormant, which is my typical procedure in a Bermuda lawn. And so through doing that, now I hadn't heard back from her. When I explained that and kind of, felt like it calmed her down and let her know that I wasn't giving up on her, that I wasn't not providing the service, that it was simply a timing thing, and that the particular types of weeds have to be controlled at a particular time of year. And for that weed, it would be later this fall, and I'd be happy to come out and take care of it at that time. And she said, "Well, is that included in what you're doing, or is that extra?" I said, no, that's part of your plan. I'm going to take care. So you can kind of hear in their voice sometimes they're wanting to call you and fire you if you give them any reason. Okay, so I'm not wanting to give her a reason, because I don't want to lose her as a customer. I'm simple, because I know, this is the part that's key, I know that if I can keep her on as a customer, I've only had her for a few months, and so her yard it's a new yard. It's got a few problems, but I know that if I can get her through this fall, I can take care of this one particular weed that's a problem in her yard that she's calling about, that next year her yard is going to look much better, and she may be a customer for the next 10 years. So I've just got to keep her on, keep her from firing me over the next few months, because I know that I can take care of the problem that she's calling about. And so anyway, so the difference would be, what if she calls and I immediately get defensive and say, well, I told you that was a difficult weed to get rid of, and I told you when I when you first signed up that you had some weeds and I was going to try to get rid of them in the fall, but you know, here you are calling me again complaining about it. Did you not remember me telling you that when I first signed you up? You know, and if you do that and respond in a defensive way, or you just have this attitude like, you know, I don't care if you fire me or not, I'll go get another customer, then you know what, they're gonna fire you. And if you're okay with that, then fine. I'm just personally not okay with that. I want to keep her, and I want to get her neighbor, and the neighbor after that, and the neighbor after that. You know, so anyway, it's just, you got to think of how I'm going to respond to people, because you're going to get these customers, and a lot of times if you'll just respond in a gentle way, you know, listening well. I'm not a great listener, but I try to listen and then address their specific concerns. And that's the other thing. If it's your fault, if you've done something, and again, sometimes this happens weed control, sometimes it happens in mowing, where you do something wrong, like say you're out mowing the grass, or you have employees and they just, I've had this happen where they just, my employees or whoever, maybe me, just totally miss, you know, trimming along one side of the house. And they call and they're like, y'all just totally missed one side of the house. You know, I'm not saying that happened all the time, but once in 1,000 yards it may happen. You just own up to it. If it's your mistake, and I learned this the other day, I had called a big national pizza carrier, okay? And I usually go pick up the pizza, but this was a situation where I had kids home and it was just easier to have them deliver it. Well, anyway, it took like an hour to have the pizza delivered. And I thought, what in the world? An hour? I should have just, I mean, I could have rode a bicycle down there and got it by now. But anyway, after an hour, I mean, I didn't think anything of it, but it was just a little bit frustrating. Well, a few days later, I get a postcard in the mail from this big national pizza chain saying, we're sorry that your last delivery took longer than expected. Please enjoy 50% off any, you know, pizza of your choice. And I thought, you know what? I appreciate that. That's good customer service, because they have some kind of system that shows that it took an hour to get me my pizza. Let's give him 50% off, because we don't want to lose a customer for the rest of our life over being late one time. I don't want to lose this potential customer that could be with me for the next 10 years and could tell their friends and neighbors about me over a few clumps of Dallas grass that I can take care of this fall. So you got to address the problems. If you make a mistake, I've done it this year where I've spot treated weeds, and in one area where I'd spot treated the weeds, it had turned the grass brown, because to try to get rid of the weeds. You know, that doesn't happen often, but occasionally it does happen. Well, it looked bad. It was in this lady's front yard, and I was, you know, I was not happy about it. I saw it. I didn't wait for her to call me and complain about it. When I went by her house, I saw it. I called her immediately. I said, listen, I am sorry about what happened in your front yard. I'm going to do what it takes to make that right. And I want you to know that your next service, that I'm not going to leave a bill for this next service, because that's not to the level of my expectations for your yard, and I apologize. And she said, well, thank you for calling. That, you know, we did notice that, and that means a lot that you would call. And it was $40. It was a small yard, $40 service. So I basically ate that $40, but you know what? It could have been the difference in me losing that customer or keeping that customer for a long time. So anyway, own up to your mistakes and learn how to talk to these disgruntled customers, because you know what? It's part of the business. Thanks.